Let's assess all that with Paul Glastris, who's the editor-in-chief of Washington Monthly magazine and a former speechwriter for President Clinton. He's therefore is in Washington. Good afternoon to you.
Hello.
The general view seems to be that Mitt Romney won. Do you agree?
I do. I think it was the strongest performance we've seen out of Mitt Romney in months, and one of the weakest performances we've seen out of President Obama.
So what was going on with this great communicator, Barack Obama, then?
Well, this debate reminded me of the 2000 debate between George W. Bush, then governor, and Vice President Al Gore. People may recall that debate. Vice President Gore said of Governor Bush's tax policies that it would be tax cuts for the rich and it would be fiscally damaging. And George W. Bush simply denied that that was true. He said, that's fuzzy math. Well, it was true. We did see big tax cuts for the rich and a very poor economic performance under George Bush's 8 years. I think Mitt Romney took a page out of that. And when President Obama said, your tax cuts are for the rich, he just denied it and said that's not true. And I think it threw President Obama off his game. I think what you saw was a Mitt Romney who we've been wondering when he would, as we say in America, move to the center. He's been spending most of his time talking to conservatives and impressing them of how conservative he could be. Last night we saw a more moderate Mitt Romney, and that too threw President Obama off his game.
So what does President Obama do in preparation for the next debate to potentially counter that?
Well, I think that what we saw last night with President Obama was the same weakness we also saw from him in the convention. If your viewers remember his convention speech a few weeks ago, which got, pretty poor grades, it lacked, and he lacked last night, a sense of vision. What have his policies been? Why has he put forth the policies he's done in the last 4 years? How will they enable him to do things in the next 4 years? In other words, a strong, clear, coherent agenda. And that's what he needs to do in the next series of debates.
And what of the wider picture here? I mean, clearly you're saying you thought Romney won. Most people seem to be saying they think Romney won. Will that change the wider picture, the polling that we're seeing at the moment, the way people ultimately will vote?
Very good question. It's hard to know. Political science shows that debates seldom move voting very much. They, if anything, accelerate trends that are already there. People have made up their minds. There are very few undecided voters. Those who are undecided tend to not be paying a lot of attention. They weren't watching, for the most part, these debates last night. But we have seen a little bit of tightening in Governor Romney's favor. I think we'll see an acceleration of that. It remains to be seen whether it'll make that much difference.
And just out of interest, do we know the viewing figures? Were they exceptionally high or low compared to previous debates?
I don't know the figures. The predictions, the poll predictions were that it would be watched by an extraordinarily large number of people. But again, the question is, was it watched by people who were willing to change their minds or who had not yet made up their minds?
OK. Paul Glastris in Washington, thank you very much indeed.